Yep, you know why you're here. Let's get straight into it. If you've ever found yourself staring cross-eyed at one of these things right in front of you when you're on your laptop or on your couch, I know exactly what you mean, and that's what we're here to fix today. So before we go into the solutions, it's really good to know and understand the life cycle of these things, because it is a two-pronged, maybe even three-pronged approach to make sure that you really get rid of these fungus gnats once and for all. So what is actually happening is adult fungus gnats live for about a week, about 7 days. And in that time, one female fly, one female gnat, can go into your soil and lay up to 300 eggs. Look, that's disgusting. 300 eggs into your soil. And then those eggs only take about 4 days to hatch into larvae, and then they live in your soil and eat all of the different fungus and organic matter, which is why they're called fungus gnats. And while the adult flies are just annoying, they don't really do much to your plants on the top, if you've got younger plants, smaller plants, or even seedlings, they can eat the roots of the plants. So while they're mostly annoying, you have to watch out for really, really small plants. The thing is though, once their larvae are hatched and they emerge as adults again, the cycle starts over. And it's a really, really short cycle of only what, about 2-3 weeks. So if you only focus on catching the flying adults on top of the soil, the ones you see, then you're actually missing out on 50%, on half of the problem that is still happening in that soil. But over the years of having fungus gnats, I've tried different approaches. I've tried to find the easiest and the best one. I've found now what works for me. So let me share what I've actually learnt, what I actually think works, and what might be just a waste of time. Now, I want to be honest, I don't usually have massive fungus gnat infestations. I'll try and get videos of the gnats here and there because I do see 1 or 2 flying around. It is winter here in Sydney at the moment, and it is a cause for more. They do... See, there's one. Like literally right there, I saw him. Anyway, had to be. I do get a few here and there. I do see them in my plants, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 flying around at the most. And it's because I regularly use something that I buy from the grocery store. It's about $2 to $3, takes 30 seconds to apply, but I don't use it for fungus gnats. I use it for something completely different. But I'm going to share exactly what that is a little bit later, and it could be a game changer for you too. Okay, let's start with solution number 1, and you've probably seen these around before, and that is just these yellow sticky traps. There you go. They come in different shapes and sizes, and they basically just work nice and simply by the yellow part being sticky that's above the surface, and the flies fly into it and get trapped. They are yellow colour for a reason, because they do attract gnats. The yellow colour is nice and bright and shiny, and it attracts them, so they fly towards these things. So while they do make a difference and they do catch flies, I'm not sure, in my opinion, they catch enough, or they do enough really to make a difference. So yellow sticky traps were actually, I'm pretty sure they were the very first things that I tried. But the one thing I don't really like about them is once you peel off the part and it's sticky and you've got all of the flies and everything on there, the bottom part stays in the soil. So that arrow there that you can see on my example stays in the soil, and then you've got this top part. So to remove them, you have to grab that sticky part with all the flies on it. And I don't think many people who who manufacture them think of this point, because there is nowhere to grab on this part without your finger sticking to the sticky trap. And of course you're grabbing the fly bits, and you have to find, a little bit that's free of flies. Look, I just think it's disgusting, in my personal opinion. There's definitely some pros. They do attract the flies, but I think there's too many, in my opinion, too many problems I don't like. Your finger getting stuck with all the fly adults is disgusting. They only break the problem of the adults. They don't do anything with the eggs or the larvae in the soil, so it's only breaking 50% of the problem. And especially if you're someone who likes using beneficial bugs, then these things just attract all sorts of bugs, and it's not the best solution. So they're okay if you want to start with them. If you don't have a very big problem, then try them out, see how you go. But I personally used to use them, and I don't anymore. So I'm going to put them aside. Right, so the next solution I use is these blue light traps. So these just catch flying insects again, but for me, they work a little bit better because they plug into some power source, or there is a power source battery in the base of some, and then they have this blue fluorescent light that attracts the flies to them. Now, I love these, but I actually bought these blue light traps thinking it would just catch mosquitoes, and it does. But it actually catches every single bug out there. And if you're in Australia here, it's a bonus because it catches mosquitoes, moths, flies, bugs, lots of flying things. And this has kind of just become one of my best friends in my house. I can't live without them. It's also pretty cheap. This one, I think it was about $12, maybe $15, and it comes with refill traps. It does still have a sticky component, but it has part on the top that you can see that my finger doesn't stick to. And as you can see, it has caught quite a lot of those disgusting flies. It's not nice to touch, but it works for me. Just the same, if not more, I find, than the sticky trap. Now, a couple of limitations to these. You do have to have, in some cases, if it's a plug-in, you do have to have a plug around your plant somewhere. That might be a problem, that might not be. But again, you're only also attracting the adults in these, just like the sticky trap. And while you're catching the flies, there might still be eggs or larvae crawling around. And so again, you're not catching the whole problem. If you're actively trying to encourage beneficial insects in your indoor plant area, you might just want to be very strategic about how you use these or when you use these and where you run them, right? So this one actually sits in my bathroom and catches flies and gnats. There's quite a few on there at the moment. It's been in there for maybe a month and a half. So it's done really well. It's caught a lot of different things. It's disgusting. But I do think it's good. But again, it's only grabbing the flying adults. It's not fixing the cycle. So one of the things I do really recommend is product number 3. It's not a product. It is just to stop watering your plants. The fungus gnat larvae, those little larvae like baby flies, they only really survive in the damp conditions. So if you stop your watering, it breaks their breeding cycle by removing those damp conditions where they just need to survive. So for me, it is my go-to method. It's the very first thing I do when I see fungus gnats in a plant or I know which plant it is. I'll just stop watering that plant completely and I'll let the soil completely dry out, like 100% down to a 0 or a dry plus on your moisture meter. And do make sure you use either a chopstick or a moisture meter or something, because you want to check that the whole root zone, the entire potting mix is dry, not just the top part. You want to make sure it's dry properly. Even if your plant has to droop a little bit for that soil to dry out, it's okay. Plants can come back from underwatering 99% of the time. Just don't leave it too long. Just make sure you dry it out enough for those fungus gnats to stop breeding and those little larvae babies to stop eating, basically. So it does work really well for most plants, but of course, we all love our calatheas as much as they are drama queens, and plants like calatheas or ferns, you can't actually let their soil dry out that much because they do also really appreciate more damp, consistent conditions. So while you can stop watering in most cases, I bet that your fungus gnat problems aren't in those plants where you can dry out, is probably in those plants where the moisture or the soil mix, I should say, is kept damp for a long time. So another thing you can do is repot the entire thing. Get rid of all the old soil. So if your plant absolutely can't handle drought conditions in that soil, those moisture-loving drama queens, then repotting might become more necessary for you. So just take the plant out, get all the old soil off, shake all the old soil off as much as possible, get rid of most of the eggs. I would even rinse the roots off as much as possible and give it completely fresh potting mix. Now this works because you're physically removing the breeding ground, right? No eggs, no larvae. No problem. Again, I use this for the more sensitive plants, or if I've got a really bad infestation. I have had that a long time ago when I used to overwater a little bit too much. But honestly, drying it out, getting rid of all of those eggs, either drying out the soil or getting rid of all the soil and repotting to brand new soil is a much more disruptive way to kill the eggs and the larvae, not just attacking those bugs, those flying things at the top, outside of the soil. So tip number 5. Apple cider vinegar traps. Have you tried these? I have tried this, and basically all you need to do is fill a jar with apple cider vinegar, a couple of drops of dish soap, and then you cover that jar with some kind of plastic wrap and you just poke holes, smaller holes, into that plastic wrap so the flies can get in. Now the theory is that vinegar attracts them, the soap breaks down the surface tension, and so they drown. They get caught on the surface and they drown. But when I tried this, it didn't really work for me. Maybe I set it up wrong. Maybe I didn't have enough dish soap. I don't know. Maybe the holes are too big. I don't know. But for me, it just wasn't a solution that worked, I guess. And even if it had worked perfectly, again, you're only catching the adults. So it's one of those solutions that you see in social media everywhere that's only fixing 50% of the problem. It again doesn't address all the eggs and all the larvae and all the icky stuff in the soil that you can't see. But for me, it didn't work. So I would probably give this one a miss if I was to recommend. But hey, if it works for you, great. Share what you did in the comments below. And let everyone know if it works for you. Now, before we go any further, I know this is a lot to remember, so I've put together a value-packed guide. It's called Bugs Be Gone, and it's just basically a pest troubleshooting guide that talks you through the most common houseplant pests that you will come across. Spider mites, mealybugs, aphids, fungus gnats is in there, and it's absolutely free. You can grab that in the description in the show notes below. And if you want to prevent most of these problems before they even start, come and join my Leafy Lounge newsletter. Every week I share plant care stories and plant care tips that can stop things like this happening before they even start, because honestly I do think that prevention is so much easier than cure. So again, I'll leave the link in the description below. Come and have some fun and join the Leafy Lounge newsletter. Okay, next one is a hydrogen peroxide solution. I'm sure you've seen some Instagrammers talk about this. So basically, hydrogen peroxide is really rich in oxygen, and the way it kills the fungus gnats is by attacking in the soil. You pour it over the soil, and it creates a really oxygen-rich environment that those eggs and larvae can't survive in, which is actually quite cool. I love learning about this stuff. So I have tried this before, and I've actually had really good success with it. You do have to water down the hydrogen peroxide a bit, so I'm pretty sure it's like 1 part hydrogen peroxide, and get the 3% hydrogen peroxide solution. I got mine from my pharmacy actually. I'm sure you can get it quite easily. And then mix that 1 part to 3 to 4 parts. I go for 4 parts water. So you really, really dilute it down because it's quite a strong thing. So this actually worked quite well for me, this solution. You have to repeat it quite often, every few days for about 2 weeks at least, because again, you're only going for the eggs and hatching the eggs. So you still have to do something to create those adult bugs flying around, but it is actually a really good, safe solution. It's quite effective, and it uses something that a lot of people already have at home anyway. I think this is a solution you can use if you want to avoid repotting altogether, but you still need something stronger than just drying out the soil. So it's somewhere in between. Okay, moving on to the next solution. So remember right at the beginning, I mentioned a $2 to $3 like item that you can buy at the grocery store, you can get it delivered. Well, that product is cinnamon. Now, cinnamon is actually pretty cool, right? It works because it's eliminating the fungus in the soil, and fungus gnats live off of fungus, funny enough, right? So I learned that cinnamon contains something called cinnamaldehyde. Sounds very evil. I quite like it actually. Cinnamaldehyde. And it's a very beautiful, natural antifungal product. And that starves the larvae from their food source, which is very cool. So for me, I do use cinnamon every now and again in my plant care routine, but I actually use it for a different purpose. And because it's antifungal, I use it on top of my soil very lightly to prevent mold growing on the soil in certain conditions, right? So especially in those colder, damper months, like here in Sydney, it is one of the coldest, wettest winters on record since 1985, I learnt this morning. So it can get very cold and wet, right? Doors stay closed, humidity stays high, and airflow is reduced. So I sparingly just go and sprinkle a little bit of cinnamon here and there, just as a light dusting on my soil if it's needed. And honestly, I think it works pretty brilliantly to prevent or stop mold from happening. But now, as I've written out all of these points for this video, I've realized that cinnamon might also be the reason why I don't actually get major fungus gnat issues. I'm actually eliminating their food source without even knowing it before it even happens. So yes, prevention is better than cure, as I said. So a really good natural thing to try. It's only $2. It's definitely up there as one of the solutions I would recommend to get rid of fungus gnats. There is another one I've tried, and it is diatomaceous earth. I have explained a bit about diatomaceous earth before. I have a whole mealybugs video very similar to this about how you can attack them and get rid of them. And I'll leave that link up here for you. Now, people have suggested to use DE before on fungus gnats. I think it's a little bit hit and miss, if I'm honest, because the bugs have to land onto that powder that you're putting all over the soil. You just sprinkle a little bit on the soil surface because that's where the gnats are going for anyway. And if an adult lands on it, then microscopic particles in that diatomaceous earth will hook onto that bug and damage it and kill them. But when it comes to the eggs and stuff inside the soil, you would have to mix the diatomaceous earth into the soil, but it just attacks all living things, which I'm not a big fan of. So it will dry out the roots a lot more, and you can't get it wet either because then it just stops working. So it's not really good for soil mixture. So again, I think DE, diatomaceous earth, is actually a lot better for things like mealybugs where you can really target the bugs, you can see them. But as I said, for gnats, it's just a little bit too much potluck whether they've actually landed where you've applied that DE. Plus, it's messy, you have to wear a mask applying it, and any watering basically resets the whole process. Now, this is one that I know a lot of people swear by, especially if you're in the US, because it is very easy to get to, and that is mosquito bits. You know that big tub of little straw bits they almost look like? It's mosquito bits. Now, these kill fungus gnat larvae directly by introducing a bacteria into your soil, and that is specifically targeted to destroy those larvae and those little eggs. It contains something called BTI. I'm not even going to attempt to actually say the full name of what it is, but it is a bacteria, as I said, that specifically targets the fungus gnat larvae, and by all accounts, it is incredibly effective. I hear a lot of really good things about mosquito bits and BTI. I haven't used it myself because it is harder to get here in Australia. You can get it off of Amazon, I believe, but I've read that the bacteria from BTI can stay active in the soil for about 14 days, and then that kills the larvae as they hatch as well as they're growing. So you're attacking the problem at the source, at the eggs, which is really good. You're breaking the breeding cycle. I know there's other products, by the way, that do contain BTI. If you can get it easily and based on user feedback I see everywhere, it is a very effective solution, so you might want to give that a try too. Okay, so now we're up to the final solution, number 9, and this is how I attack fungus gnats. This is how I get rid of them. And I like to use a three-pronged approach in a way. So the first thing I will do is I will absolutely stop watering. I've mentioned at the beginning, it's the best thing I think you can do because they don't like damp situations, and those little larvae baby things don't survive if you've got really, really dry soil. They hate dry soil. So I will almost stress my plants out a little bit by drying out that soil completely. My plants might droop a little bit, but I absolutely dry that soil as much as possible. Even if it's a calathea, I will try and dry it out and not water it as much as I have been before. Second thing I will do is for all of those rogue flying adults, I do use, as you saw before, I use the blue light. And although there's no science that I know of to it, of blue light attracting them more than yellow color, right? The yellow color is there because it's meant to attract the fungus gnats, but I find that this works better. And actually, I did a bit of an experiment in the last 24 hours between the blue lights and the sticky traps. And this is the sticky trap, you can see, absolutely none. And the blue light just in 24 hours gave me 3 bugs altogether. So for me, this draws them in more, even though I can't find any actual research done on it. But hey, my experiment seems to work for me. And then my third thing that I do, and I haven't mentioned this yet, so this is my secret, I lay a layer of something on the soil to prevent any flies from going into the soil or to prevent anything from coming out of the soil. And what I use is horticultural sand. I have tried this over the last year now and it works very, very well for me. Again, which is probably why I don't have a lot, but I use it for those plants that I do think has too many bugs for my liking, right? And I put a layer of soil that's around, I think it's a fingerful. What is that? A ½ inch, a ¼ inch? I'm not very good on the inches side. I use metrics. So about 1.5 centimeters layer of sand on top of the soil. Even if it's a big plant, I will still do sand. And I use horticultural sand because not only can you use it for on top of your plants as just a layer, you can also use it for seedlings or, propagation or things like that. So it has multi-purposes. So this 3-pronged thing that I use is a system that works because you're attacking the flying adults, you're preventing new eggs from going into the soil, and then you're eliminating the existing larvae by stopping all the watering, right? So nothing comes in, nothing comes out, nothing escapes. And when I do water again, I just water slowly so I don't disturb that sand layer too much. You don't just pour it straight in, just keep it slowly, making sure the plant is getting enough water still, just a little bit slower. The best thing about this approach for me is there's no chemicals, not that I know of, and it uses things you probably have already, and it is comprehensive. So you're not just treating symptoms, you're breaking the entire life cycle. So if you want to try any of the things that I've mentioned today, any of the 9 different things, just make sure that you're grabbing that entire life cycle, the flies up above and the bugs down below, right? You want to get the full system because otherwise you're only treating half the problem. So look, fungus gnats are completely infuriating and frustrating, especially when you're zapping them at your face. But the good news is once you understand that you're going for the full breeding cycle, they are actually really manageable. So if you need 2 elements or 3 elements out of the 9 things that I've shared with you today, go for it, do it. Just attack the full 100% of that bug problem and you will find that you'll have so many less problems going forward, I promise you. And honestly, sand has been a lifesaver for me, that little trick. So I hope that one helps. So do me a favor, if you have got a lot of value out of this video, smash that like button down the bottom, subscribe to this channel if you haven't, and as I've said before, don't forget that Bugs Be Gone guide. It's a full pest guide about how to figure out what pests you have, how to treat them, how to look after them, a little bit of understanding about those bugs so you can attack them and not have pest problems going forward. It's absolutely free. It's for you in the description below. And again, don't forget to join my Leafy Lounge newsletter. Come and have some fun. Let me know what you think of this channel. And if you've got any ideas for new videos, give them to me in your email. So thank you very much for watching. Have a week of leaves, love and laughter as always. And I'll see you in the next video. See you later. Bye.